Hi guys, welcome back to Two Worlds Collide podcast. On today's episode, I had close friend and real estate guru, Tom Hector. Tom and I discussed the current market situation, his forecasts, his experience in the real estate industry, work-life balance, fitness, training and diet, and much more. I hope you guys enjoy. Mate, Tommy Hector, welcome to Two Worlds Collide podcast.
Mate, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I know. How you going?
Oh, really well, mate. Yeah, we've obviously known each other since 2004. So what's that, 20-odd years together, eh? All these years later.
Shit, is that the age of year 8 when you get in there, 14?
Year 8 at Ross Trevor College. And obviously we're here only 100 metres up the road now, 20 years later. So, yeah, we've stayed very close, eh?
Yeah, we have. We have over the years. Obviously going in pretty different directions. You went into the real estate industry and I joined the army straight out of school.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I look back at my career now and 20 years on since I started high school, but what's that, 16 years out of school this year, and we had our 15-year anniversary last year at Ross Trevor. We had a big turnout, but yeah, it's been a very, very interesting 15 years for me. Obviously, head down, bum up for the first 5 in particular. Worked my absolute backside off, and now I'm reaping the rewards of my success, so it's been fun.
Because your road into real estate was, like I remember that you did something out of school, didn't you? Like a real estate auction or something like that?
Yeah, an auction idol class. So for everyone that listens today, never think that school will be the fate of what you choose to do after school. Obviously, with Sam going to the army and now doing his fitness and his podcast, his world's changed a lot since high school, and mine in particular. I was never an avid school learner. I got an education of like 78, I think, at as my TER back then. And then, yeah, from there we went.
You don't want to know mine.
Yeah, I'm sure I don't. But yeah, I had a property degree lined up at Uni SA, but I was going to be a plumber by trade. I had a plumbing apprenticeship lined up, and then all of a sudden I was in my English communications class with Mr. Yeso. For all those people that would know Mr. Yeso, she's been at Ross Trevor College for a long period of time, and I was fortunate enough to compete in an auction idol program in 2008, and then went to win that competition in 2008, and got into real estate as a cadet at Toop and Toop Real Estate in 2009, and then my business partner now, Phil Harris, decided to start Harris Real Estate in 2010, and here we are, 15 years later, with a business now of over 300 staff and doing $50 million in revenue. So it's pretty crazy.
Describe to me that auctioneer. Yeah, what did you have to do for it?
So basically it was a mock auction against other school students throughout South Australia. So there was 24 students that competed throughout South Australia, and there was 3 from Ross Trevor, and you had to go through heats and then into a final, and I was fortunate enough to get to the final, and then, yeah, very, very fortunate to actually win it. And I forget, actually, there's an Ingram pilgrimage that runs at Ross Trevor College every second year, and I think I got $1,000, I'm pretty certain, as my first prize, and they gave $500 of that prize money to the Indian pilgrimage, and I was always a person that wanted to give back, and I was very, very fond of those students that went to the Indian pilgrimage, and the Edmund Rice tradition, which Ross Trevor, its ethos is being a mentor for others. So, yeah, that pilgrimage still runs now at Ross Trevor College all those years later, but auction idol taught me about winning. It taught me about what the real estate industry is like, and then I was fortunate enough to do some work experience in 2008 in my school holidays, and I absolutely just wanted to I absolutely loved the 3 days I did, and here I am 20 years later.
A lot of sacrifice in the real estate industry, isn't there? A lot of you giving up a lot of your weekends. Talk me through that. So the interesting factor about real estate is you can earn anywhere from $50,000 a year up until $1 million a year. So the psychology behind real estate is the harder you work, the luckier you become, and you've got uncapped commissions, you've got uncapped income. So I soon worked out that I love real estate. Why? Because I wanted to be the best version of myself, and I want to be the best real estate agent in South Australia. So now, from a young age, I was selling over 100 houses a year consistently, year on year, and I've been selling over 150 houses now for over a decade. And sure, it takes its toll on its mind, it takes its toll on its body, and obviously it's hard on the mental state. But I love the thrill of the chase, and I love being better every day and every year. So the hardest thing in our job, though, is the discipline, because there's so much free time as a salesperson. But if you're prepared to do the work and the activity, especially you, Sam, being someone that's severely disciplined with your exercise and your fitness and coming back from the military background, you're definitely going to have success. And that's where people go wrong, because there is too much free time in our business. I think discipline is one of the most important things in life you can have, right? Have you found that a driving factor for you to be really, really disciplined?
It's interesting. I've been doing a lot of research in the last probably 90, 120 days on genes and genetics, and looking back through the Hector family and the Carls family, which is my mum's maiden name, around like the ability to play sport, the coordination, what you're good at, what you're not good at. Like I was a half decent tennis player as a child, but never went on to be anything better because I didn't have the talent. Sure, I was disciplined, but then I soon worked out that, you need some form of talent to become a great sportsman in life. And old mate Tommy Jonas over here has obviously got exhausted every avenue possible from his career in football, and I commend him on what he's done for playing so many games at the Port Adelaide Footy Club. But with me, one thing that's been very, very good, and I've been very good at for such a long period of time, is what you've done so well, Sam, is discipline. And you can't teach that. You can't teach discipline. You've got it or you don't. But discipline gets you so far in life. And unfortunately, in today's society, people really, really struggle with discipline. There's no question about that.
Do you think that you're very disciplined in your work industry, but also you're very talented as well?
It's a really good question. I think definitely I'm not as talented as other people in the industry. I'm talented in regards to selling and my ability to listen, my ability to talk and ability to persuade, but there's definitely better agents out there throughout South Australia, but they haven't got the disciplines and the consistent disciplines over a long period of time, and that's been my success. So I've got some amazing real estate agents, even at Harris Real Estate, that I feel like are not fulfilling their full potential. Why? Because they haven't got the discipline around doing the basic activities day in, day out over a long period of time. And it's a bit like my health and fitness. Like, I'm not the fittest person. I'm not the most naturally gifted person when it comes to movements in the gym or on a football field or on a tennis court, but I am prepared to outwork and definitely be at the gym consistently, being the best version of myself. And that's what I play at every day. Like, I don't play at a 10 out of 10 every day. I don't play at a 4 out of 10. I play at a 6 to 8 every single day. And then over a period of time, that compounds and that brings you success.
You can be awesome at what you are, but if you're not disciplined at it and you don't work away from it, and what I mean when I work away from it, for example, like if you don't try and craft what you're doing and try and perfect it to be 100% away from what you're actually doing in terms of the real estate, if you don't practice your auctioning, if you don't practice your personality skills, it's probably going to fall apart on you, isn't it? And you'll probably get found out sooner or later.
Totally. It's interesting, when I first got into real estate in 2009, I was working at Toop and Toop as a cadet. I was earning more than a first-year plumber. I thought it was fantastic, and that was just when iPhones had come out, and I went to Dick Smith Electronics on the North Parade. I'll never forget it. I paid like $100 for a dictaphone, and I sat there in my bed and I played, and I played what a weekend callback would look like. I talked about selling versus maximizing the price. I talked about price strategy, timing, costs. I spoke about auction versus for sale, because real estate is very, very predictable. Every homeowner wants 10 to 20% more than their property's true value. Every buyer wants to buy it for the cheapest possible price. But you've got to persuade, you've got to manipulate, you've got to convince a buyer to buy it and a vendor to manage their expectations, because our job as an agent is to manage people's expectations. And if we manage people's expectations in a big way, that builds trust, and then more importantly, it builds success in our business. But the reason I've had great success in this business is because I'm so consistent around my daily prospecting habits. So when a client comes to me to sell their house, I've been heavily referred, or I've known that potential customer for a number of years because I've consistently called that person maybe over a 3, 4, 5 year period every 3 to 6 months. So frequency builds trust, systems equals leverage, leverage equals control. And that's some of the daily mantras that has really worked for me in the last 15 years of selling.
You know, on a personal level, I know that you've sold family members of my houses and stuff like that, and even they've called me and said the small touches you do, you know, you're just calling them on randomly, even after selling the house, right after the sale's done, it's done and dusted, you're even calling them then. Like,
definitely.
You know, and that's I think that's a touch that you're trying to talk about, right? Like going outside the norm, being disciplined with that sort of stuff, building connections. Have you found that building connections and networking is one of the most important things as well?
Yeah, the best thing about my job now is my friends are my clients, or my clients are my friends. You can say it either way, but every time I sell a house now, the trust and the frequency of trust has been there for such a long period of time. Like, I'm selling houses for the second time, the third time around, or they're referring me to their friends and their families. But yeah, like every single day when I punch out 20, 30, 40, 50 phone calls now, I've been speaking to those particular people for such a long period of time. So the connection is so big that people just trust me. They like me. They want to do business with me. But as you can probably appreciate, for the people listening that might be in every different industry out there throughout Australia, you've got to start somewhere, and you've just got to be a person of giving. And people, no one owes you anything. Like, if you think in life that people owe you something, that's where people go horribly wrong. And when you actually understand that nobody owes you anything, and you've just got to be the good person, trust me, you do it day in, day out for a long period of time, it will play. It will have great long-term effect, but people give up because it's all too difficult.
How many real estate agents do come into the industry and then, they just wash out a year later or two later because they love the lifestyle, but they might not want the amount of work?
There's probably an 80% dropout rate in the first 1 to 2 years.
Is there really?
And the reason that's the case is because there's too much free time. And at the end of the day, people aren't prepared to do the discipline activities around prospecting, because if people think selling houses has got to do with houses, they're in the wrong industry. It's got to do with people. And if you don't like people, real estate won't for you. So, but you know me very, very well. I actually love people. I love finding out people's lives. I ask lots of questions. I don't ask questions because I'm an interrogator. I ask questions because I'm intrigued about people's lives, and I generally want to help and care about them. So my analogy in life now is being a good person, and I know that longer term people will gravitate towards that. Now, not everybody loves Tom Hector. Not everybody loves my honesty. Not everybody loves my directness. I'm very direct. Like, I'll call a spade a spade. So if your expectations are 20% above what the market's prepared to pay, I'm going to be honest and tell you that. I'm not going to sugarcoat the subject and tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what you need to know and to get you an outcome.
I mean, if I was selling my house, I would just want honesty, right? Because there's so much stuff that's like the fallout from selling houses. What if you promise one thing and then come out with the other thing, right? And then they might be 200 grand out of pocket because you told them that you could get it for this.
100%. And that's unfortunately the cowboy industry that we're in at times. And there's always going to be people in the industry that will always just basically take that easy effect, which is basically get the listing at all costs and worry about the listing later. But the price and the expectations in the home seller never goes away. So if you don't get the rules up front from the begin with, it becomes a challenge. So that's where, for me right now, I'd much rather be upfront and honest, sell less properties, but also the people that trust me, like me, they'll refer me more to the people of their caliber, which will get me better priced properties.
Yeah. How many people would be full of shit in the real estate industry?
There's a lot.
A lot.
It's a bit like car sales, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are just out there all about the quick effect, and no one's prepared to tell the truth. So you can do as much research as you want of me, but I've got 350 reviews on realestate.com at 5 stars. I've sold over 1,000 properties in South Australia. Like I mentioned to you before, I've sold over 150 houses now for 10 years in a row. So there's a lot of heavy lifting involved, but yes, I haven't pleased everyone along the way, but I've done my best ability to try and please and do the best thing by all those people. But I run properties with a price. I run most of my properties to auction, so there's clear and transparent process. And that's built a business now that people gravitate towards, because you're going to get a straight deal if you get Tom. What
about the team that you manage? How many people do you have in your team?
Yeah, I've got 4 others, which work really, really well for me. And I'm definitely a mentor and a guide to helping them grow their career. And I've really enjoyed watching a number of my junior agents go out and be solo agents over the last 10 years. And it's been really good to see that what Phil did for me, my business partner, I've done for them, and I've built their careers, and hopefully they can go on to build even bigger careers when they leave my team.
Do you feel like that was a bit of a duty of yourself because you've had that mentorship that is now your duty to mentor others?
100%, definitely. And at the end of the day, I love what I do, but I can definitely pick up a good salesperson, the bad salesperson, within the first 5 or 10 minutes of meeting somebody, because you've got it or you don't. It's a tough business, right? It's relentless. You've got to have really, really good, you've got to be charismatic. More importantly, though, you've got to have conviction, and you've got to be very, very disciplined around the daily effects. Like, you're going to get walked all over if you're not really upfront and honest with people, and you've got to have some real conviction in that first 12 months, because trying to get established in this industry now is getting harder and harder, because there are better agents out there. People do have a database, and they're prepared to call consistently, not like 10 years ago when, you know what, if you rang someone 3 times, you'd get the listing. Now you've actually got to call them for a long period of time.
I want to jump onto the current market, right, and what's happening. And more or less how the market has gone absolutely stupid in the past 4 years, probably ever since COVID, right? Now, I've got some numbers here that might intrigue some people. The amount of money that's been printed since 2020, so probably March 2020, has been 6 billion. So Australia was sitting at about $1 trillion AUD in circulation. Now we're at about 1.6.
Wow.
And that was obviously the reaction from COVID, right?
Yep.
Since 2022, the medium housing market in Adelaide has went from 600,000 to almost 900,000. And I'm going to jump onto immigration as well. So Australia's welcomed more than 2,000 migrants a day in the year to September, helping to swell the country's population by a record 659,000. Migrants rose by a third compared to the previous year, hit 765,000. Now, this is my theory on it. We printed way too much money during COVID. To combat that amount of AUD in circulation, we got a lot of migrants in, right, to get the GDP up. And then from there was not enough housing around. So there's a rental crisis all around Australia, and now housing markets are also skyrocketing because supply and demand, simple supply and demand, right? What's your thoughts on that?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think exactly what you've talked about then is completely and utterly true. And I think the Malinascus government's got a lot to answer for at the moment with relation to stemming the flow of house prices. Like I talk about it with my team, I talk about it with my clientele, I talk about it in front of the whole entire company. From an owner's point of view of being a shareholder at Harris Real Estate, is that we are living in such a false economy right now in the property market that when the market does turn, we are going to lose a lot of real estate agents, which is great. There's going to be some skill involved in actually selling houses. But if you look at SA Water now, they've run out of money. They're potentially going to privatise SA Water because they can't afford to spend all the money with all the infrastructure up in the northern suburbs. We're having huge amounts of issue now. I'm talking huge amounts of issue just to find a rental property, to the point where people are paying $700 a week for a two-bedroom townhouse in Hectorville or Ross Trevor. And then more importantly, house prices have skyrocketed 15% again in the last 12 months. So house prices have pretty much gone up 60% since the start of COVID across South Australia, metropolitan area. And we can't see that slowing until at least the first quarter of next year. So at the moment, it's difficult for a tenant. It's difficult for a home buyer. The rich are getting richer. And for the generation below us, Sam, 10, 15 years below us, I definitely feel sorry for them. So I think we've definitely got to stem migration. But then it comes back to, if we stem migration and we slow migration, well, then who's going to fill those jobs? And that's been the biggest discussion with the government, is like, okay, we don't let as many people in. We then go into a recession, and then more and more people are going to hurt with regards to loss of jobs. So it's a really tricky one. But the biggest issue we have now is not building enough houses quick enough for the amount of people coming in. If we go and look at the northern corridor, we look at the southern corridor, they're building, but they're having too many problems with local councils, local governments and infrastructure, and that's causing this massive concern.
Isn't that sad that that's happening, that we can't build houses quick enough? Like, surely we could bang these things out quick enough, right? If they put enough effort into it and enough coordination from the government and local builders, surely we could build them fast enough.
Exactly right. But then at the same time, because the issue is now, they're trying to resolve the issue, but it's probably 18, 24 months backlash. So if you look at a property in Elizabeth that was selling for $170,000 literally 2 years ago, it's now worth $220,000. Like, you could go and buy a semi out there for $150,000 pre-COVID. Now semis out in Elizabeth Park and Davern Park are selling for over $300,000. The rental side in those areas is astronomical. So you've got interstate investors buying sight unseen consistently up in the northern suburbs. Why? Because the market's moving so quickly. So, yeah, we're in a very, very interesting space. I really hope, though, for just the general economy, that house prices do tend to slow, because going back in 2018, 2019, house prices went up 3-4% a year, which is inflation figures. Whereas now they're going up 3 to 4% a quarter, which is just unheard of. So it's becoming very, very unaffordable for everybody. And if you've got lots of investment properties, obviously you're capitalising on that in a big way. But for those people that want to enter the property market for the first time, if you don't get assistance from your parents or an early inheritance,
you're screwed.
You've literally got no chance, and I mean no chance, of buying a property, which is very, very sad.
I mean, and it's the next generation which is suffering, right?
100%.
And they have to compete with all the immigration coming in.
That's correct. And like I'm selling properties all the time in Ross Triver, McGill, Tranmere. I mean, 80% of my buyers are Chinese or Indians. And they're not being racist, but they've got the money, like in particular the Chinese, and we can't compete with that. And that's hard for the average Caucasian Australian trying to enter into the property market.
Do you think it's ever going to turn down?
It definitely will, because it's all seasonal, right? We saw markets in the last 50 years go absolutely bananas. We saw the market in 01 to 07 go up 10, 15% every single year. And then in 2008, Lehman Brothers in America collapsed and the market softened for a good 5 to 6 years. There is no question the market is going to slow. The $1 million question is when, and when is it? And it's the simple factor of supply and demand. When is there going to be more supply and there's going to be less demand? But I can't see that changing anytime soon.
I mean, surely we're in a bubble, right?
We are certainly
surely
in a bubble.
We're in a bubble, and bubbles burst eventually.
They definitely do. They won't burst to the fact that properties will go backwards, but there'll be times when the market definitely evens itself out, where you bought a house for $900, you paid 6% stamp duty, plus then you put in your kitchen and bathroom in, and then 2 years later you want to sell it. And normally you might get in a bullish market, you might get 1-3 and get your money back and make a bit, but the market going back 10 years ago would tell you it could be worth $1 million. And then if you actually put all your capital into that, plus your holding costs and your interest, you actually are going to lose money. And we haven't seen that for a number of years, and it'll happen. And that's when there's one factor which happens, which is the big M word. If you're motivated, you'll meet the market. If you're not motivated, you're just not going to sell your home.
The one thing that makes me really, really anxious and really unsure about the future is the amount of money printing happening at the moment. Like America has gone stupid with their money printing. Australia is the same. European Union is the same. There is an unprecedented amount of money printing at the moment. Like I just said before, we went from $1 trillion in circulation to 1.6 in 4 years. I'm pretty sure we started the Federal Reserve in the 70s or 80s. America went from something stupid like, I think, 10 trillion to 22 trillion in the space of 4 years. So that's the amount of money that has been printed by COVID and is now in circulation. And, you know, they can blame China and Russia as much as they want, but I think inflation is actually caused by the printing from COVID.
Definitely, yeah. And that's the $1 million factor where I'll keep going back to is this COVID saga. The whole world changed in such a big way. And if you look at building a house now compared with, say, 2019, you're going to spend 40% more on building costs since the beginning. So
you know what I hate?
The whole life has just changed.
You know what I hate? I absolutely hate is Qantas got a $2 billion handout during COVID, and then last year they had a $2 billion profit, but their flying prices are almost double than what they were before COVID.
Which is just very bizarre.
They are just money hungry, not willing to drop their prices.
Exactly.
And
right.
it's just, a lot of people don't recognise it, but people that fly regularly, it is hitting in the pocket. Like I think I'm off to Melbourne next week to get a few people on a podcast over there. Before COVID, it was like $180, $200 maybe both ways, $510.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here.
Does not surprise me. It does not surprise me compared with those pre-COVID prices. And then you look at Qantas now, and if it wasn't for the federal government during COVID, Qantas would have been up the absolute backside. So, and then obviously after COVID, it just absolutely boomed. So, interesting. But I think the whole world, everything just basically went up so substantially in such a short period of time. And now the market's definitely evening itself out in all sectors. And yes, the COVID boom saw 24% capital growth in Adelaide in 21-22. We've then gone on to see 12, 13, 15% growth the last couple of years, but that's still too high in my opinion compared with normal inflation figures of like 3 to 5% per annum.
What do you reckon about the interest rates? What's your prediction on them?
Well, I can't see them going backwards anytime soon.
No, not at all.
If interest rates were to go backwards, that means the housing market would even go beyond even crazier. So I definitely think they'll hold, and then potentially maybe the first quarter of next year or late this year they might go up, but I can't see them definitely coming down for a long period of time.
A lot of uncertainty in the world, isn't there, at the moment?
Oh, in a big way,
like
Sam.
Doomsday.
So it is. So, but one thing you can control is obviously your daily habits and being the best version of yourself, and more importantly, being a good person. I think society is becoming a very selfish society. A lot of people are going through a lot of mental health issues with social media. So I think consistent learning And more importantly, whatever you do in what field you choose to do, if you're very good at it and you're passionate about it, you'll enjoy it. And that's where people go wrong, is that if you're not enjoying your life, you can't get time back. So time is your biggest commodity. So ensure you enjoy it, because you just don't know what the future holds.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head right then. Jesus, mate, you should start your own podcast. Hey, let's jump on to a couple of questions for you. My previous podcast guest was a guy named Ben Seymour. He's played professional rugby, run a whole bunch of ultra marathons, and he's gearing up for one of the toughest ultra marathons at the moment. It's called the UTMB over in Europe. They run through a couple of countries, 142 Ks. It's at they run at elevation, so there's quite thin air, and there's 10K worth of elevation in it. So 40% of people don't finish. He's training up this and tackling it. He's also a businessman as well. But he had one of the greatest questions one of my previous podcast guests has for the next podcast guest, and it is, what's one thing that you have, want, or learnt that money can't buy?
Yeah, the biggest thing I've learned since getting into real estate and doing what I've done in the last 15 years is time. You can't get time back. And a lot of people ask the question, and I know I've spoken to you about this, Sam, is like in the era of your 18 to 25 years of age, I worked seriously hard and I sacrificed a lot of my time and effort to become established at my business. But one thing you can't get back now is time. So for me now, every hour of every day counts. My diary management is so important to me. And there's just certain disciplines in my life that no matter what I'm doing, I'll be doing something for myself at that given time. It's like the gym. I'll train Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 12 o'clock until 12:45. On a Tuesday, on a Thursday at 11 o'clock, I've got my personal trainer. And then now I definitely just refuse to work on a Sunday. So Saturdays, I've done 6 open for inspections today. I've had a great day of open houses. I've met lots and lots of buyers. But now when I leave here today, it's nothing until 5 o'clock on a Sunday night where I do my weekly review. And then Monday morning, it's all steam ahead. So one thing that I've learned, Sam, is that yes, too many of my friends have gone through personal issues, maybe suicide, maybe death. I lost my good friend last year to cancer at the age of 32. And time is your biggest commodity. So at the end of the day, work out what makes you happy. And what makes me happy is my health, my fitness, my sleep. And I live a very simple life. I'm not interested in traveling for work. I'm not interested in going for long periods of holidays. I love my own bed. I might go away for a couple of weeks, but when I do come back, I don't want to break my routine for a long period of time. So yeah, for all those listeners today, I think one thing that you can get out of this is make sure you own your time. And when you are working, work. But when you're not, enjoy what you're doing, whether it's looking after your kids, hanging with your dog, hanging with your wife, whatever that may be.
When did this change for you? When did you...
2019 is probably a light bulb moment. It was December the 31st. I was sitting at my mum and dad's beach house with an ex-girlfriend of mine. I sat on the beach. She was reading a book. I'll never forget it. And I had my journal out looking at my goals for the following year. And I said to myself, in 2020, and this is just a few months before COVID, we didn't know what COVID was at that stage. I just said to myself, I want to look after my health and fitness next year. I want to actually do something for me, because the first 10 years before that, sure, I did things for myself, but I also worked flipping hard along the way. And then obviously from there, I put on 4, 5, 6 kilos of muscle and strengthened that first 12 months of having a personal trainer. And then on top of that, I just realized that simple life is sometimes the best life, not overcomplicating life. Like I used to go and speak at conferences a lot around Australia. I do a bit of that now, but it's very selective. I work with fewer people for better reasons. I pick and choose the properties I sell. I pick and choose the people I want to hang around. So I'm very particular in the way I live my life right now, whereas before I was saying yes to everybody. It's just not feasible long term. So it's probably a light bulb moment. And I was 29 at that stage, and turning 30 was also a light bulb moment. It's like, you know what? Things are getting real. People are having kids. People are getting married. People are buying their houses for the first time or their second house. And I just realized that, you know what? Without time, you can wish your whole life away. And my biggest problem in my life, ever since I got into real estate, is I want to get to number one. You get to number one, and then you want to be at number one forever. And then you get to number one forever, and then you want something else. What defines happiness? And that's probably the biggest struggle I've had since school, is like, okay, I want to be the best version of myself at fitness and at real estate, but what defines happiness? And for me now, it's fulfillment. Fulfillment is everything in life. Sure, money does give you choices. And sure, I've made lots of that in the last 15 years, but it definitely doesn't buy you happiness. So I think for me now, it's more about fulfillment, and it's going to work every day, enjoying what you do. And there's absolutely no question, footballers, athletes, real estate agents, there is a period in your life where you have to grind, you have to hustle. There's no question about that. And you've seen that yourself, Sam, when you were in the army and you tried out for special forces, what you had to put your body through, the disciplines, the late nights, the early mornings, right? Everyone's got a state in their life where there's a 2 to 5 year period where you actually have to work. Maybe it's going to university and studying medicine, whether it's going to university for 4 years. But once you get to a stage where you're established, you can work smarter, not harder. And that's where my stage of my life is now.
I reckon, I worked extremely hard when I went into the military straight away, but it was a different type of work hard.
Sure.
I absolutely brutally put my body through stuff that I would have never thought I could have at school. But,
sure.
You get there and you do that. And then, through that struggle, you can develop a mental aspect that I think I have over a lot of people now. The reason
Definitely.
why I can run long races and stuff like that. Do you ever look back on your early years and regret working too much?
Not at all. No, I don't. I look at like the demographic of a property I sold. Like I was selling properties at Virginia. I was selling properties at Sellex Beach. I even went to Morgan back in the day to sell houses because you know what? When you're hungry and you want to succeed and you'll take on every single client, that builds a foundation for where you are today. And if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So like there's a stage in my life where, you know what? You had to establish yourself. You had to build clientele. And I've done that now, and it set myself up financially. It set myself up with a great established client base. So at the end of the day, Sam, in a nutshell, no, I don't regret how hard I worked, but I definitely own my time a lot more now, and I'm a lot smarter with my assistant, Kylie, and understanding my diary and ensuring that when I have an appointment, I'm very conscious of making sure those appointments are chunked in my diary. So I'm not doing one appointment, 2 hours free. Everything's basically around time management to ensure you get your time back, because you can wish your life away, which I did for a number of years. Like you get there and life just gets busy and life goes so quickly. We're already in the month of July, nearly in August, and it feels like Christmas only just a few months ago,
I mean, it goes really, really quick, right? And that's probably one thing that I look back on, like my military career. I look at it now and, deployments to Afghanistan and stuff like that. Man, it was gone so quick. Like my deployment, I went for 6 or 7 months and it was a crazy deployment. We had a lot of stuff happen over there. But I look back on it now and like it feels like it was over in a week. Time flies, stuff like that.
But also now for me, it's about experiences. Like experiences are the best thing in life. So sure, I just got back from Darwin, had a great week with my friend Billy up there, and he's got a beautiful daughter, and we got to spend some great quality time together and enjoyed that time. I've got a beautiful niece now, my 5-year-old. I took her to school for the first day of her schooling life on Monday, and like listening to her and how excited she was, right? You can't get that time back. So you can have all the money in the world, you can have the best successful business, but for those people, I've studied it, it all comes at a cost. And it comes at a massive cost. So you've got to understand that, sure, if you want that, good luck to you. That might work for you. But for me now, sure, I still want a portion of that, but I want to experience all aspects of my life as well.
What's your outlet, man? What's your outlet from the real estate world?
I love watching sport. Like, you know that as much as I do. I love it. The Adelaide Crows. I followed tennis intimately. Carlos Alcaraz is my new literally idol since Roger Federer. I watched a stack of Wimbledon. I love understanding the athletes. I was so disappointed to watch Jordan Thompson and Max Purcell lose the Wimbledon doubles final in a third set tie break. They had championship points. So, absolutely love sport, love health and fitness, and then love watching and reading about world politics and world affairs, like understanding the Trump saga, like watching that a couple of weeks ago is just mind-blowing.
I get fascinated with stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And seeing Biden now resign. So, world affairs interest me as well. So I don't have a huge amount of hobbies, and I'll be upfront and for all the listeners now, it's hard for me to, as an outlet from real estate, I'm definitely getting better at that, but I do love world affairs. I do love relaxing at the same time as well. So people think you can't relax. I can relax. My relaxation might be a little different to other people, but I'm not a person of working 7 days a week now. I'm not a person of someone that's going to work 100-hour weeks now. I just can't anymore. I can't put my body through what I did in those early days, because you get to Monday or Tuesday and you're literally burning out to the point where you resent work. And that's what happened probably in 2018, 2019, where I did start to resent real estate and I was questioning my ability to actually want to do this long term. And it was because of the demographic of properties I was selling. The market had shifted in a big way in South Australia. The Royal Commission had come in, really tighten lending. And when lending gets tight, you can't buy houses. When you can't buy, there's not enough buyers. House prices were very soft. So I reinvented myself in late 2019, and I thought, you know what, for me to change, I've got to go back to basics and build my database with better clientele. And now I'm very fortunate. I'm selling some of the best properties ever sold, and my business couldn't be better. So very, very grateful for where my business is today, but it's all the effect of the long term and doing the right thing by people of where it's come to today.
Because you were hustling for years, right? You were just working crazy hours and all the time. Yep. Have you ever found that fitness is an outlet?
Absolutely. So 1 hour a day in the gym has been a huge impact on my life, and my 3 personal trainers I've had over the last 4 years. Lawson Daly works with me twice a week now. But yeah, there's nothing better than a big engine session to start the week, and just the effect it has on your body and how much it's changed my life is incredible, and just the strength training as well.
I mean, like the mental state, right? The effects it has on your mental state.
But if I have 2 days out of the gym or more than 2 days out of the gym, I actually start to become anxious and need to start moving. Like a walk for me now or a gentle slow run is not enough. I've got to do some functional, like high intensity classes, because I really find that works for me. And that's been a huge impact on my life, and it will never, ever change moving forward. So I'm very conscious about keeping my body in good shape, staying injury free, and then I really watch what goes in my mouth.
I mean, over the years, right, priorities change, and my priorities have changed massively over the past couple of years. I think the number one priority in my life is my health, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Health is your wealth.
Yeah, and then the second priority is my relationships, the people that I surround myself with, the relationship with my wife, friends like you, my family, and then the third most important thing is money, because I think money can buy everything else, right, apart from those 2 first things.
I agree with that. That's a really good analogy on life. Like, sure, they're the most important too, but as much as money is a toxic for a number of people, especially in my job, because I see the worst of people when money's involved. Yeah, you do need it, and it does give you a lot of choices in life, and without it,
it's a harsh reality, right?
Society's hard. There's no question. Like, look at the cost of living now. Look at house prices. Look what we spoke about before. So I think in analogy, yes, you have to have an understanding of money in a big way, because without it, you can't live the life you want.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main criticisms I have at school. They don't teach you how to manage money.
I agree with that. And I speak a lot about clients as well about life experience after school is very different from school. I think the biggest thing that probably the education department around Australia needs to understand is that how do you actually, what's a profit and loss? What's the rich dad, poor dad analogy, right? How do you actually run a spreadsheet? How do you like income and profit and loss? Like the simple factors of life is everyone in South Australia, or in Australia, I should say, not just South Australia, is a spender, right? Everyone wants everything now. Whereas back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, if you couldn't afford it, you wouldn't buy it. But now with this credit card craziness, you've got pay now, pay later, all these number of things is changing society, and it's just causing more stress on relationships. And it's all a false economy because people think they've got money, but they don't.
You know what's to blame for that? Social media. Yep.
Instagram and Facebook.
Liabilities over assets. Totally. You know, that's what, and that's the rich dad, poor dad analogy, you know, like poor people want liabilities, rich people want assets.
Totally.
And then rich dad, poor dad says if you can get your assets to pay for your liabilities, that's when you can buy stuff.
Definitely.
That's when you can buy stuff. Don't go fucking forking out money on a credit card and shit like that, you know. It's just,
I agree.
And we're in this world of social media has driven that, unfortunately, and I think it's 100% that is why, because someone has something on social media and then everyone wants it and everyone wants to post it, and that's where they're getting their cheap dopamine hits when they need to be getting their dopamine hits from getting up early, going for a run, going in the gym, making sure your relationships are good, making sure your health is good, making sure you're putting the right food into your body. That's the stuff that we need to get back to, not impressing people on social media. I think that's one of
that's causing a lot of people to go through a lot of issues with mental health issues.
Massively.
And if I was to have children one day, and I know, Sam, we've spoken about you wanting to have children, like you think about what social media is going to be like in 10 years' time. So when your daughter or son gets older, it's going to be a very, very big talking point as a family about what you do with this Snapchat, with Instagram and Facebook, because the bullying and all the nonsense that goes on is crazy.
Yeah, I think that's, like we didn't have social media bullying back in the day. We just had face-to-face.
We did, and it's crazy to think how life has changed in such a short period of time. To think 15 years ago, iPhones had just come out, and now it's just a given you got an iPhone.
I reckon the first iPhone came out, we're in year 10.
That's correct.
Yeah, and it was like it was like a bit of technology from the moon, right? You could have a whole bunch of songs on it. You could call people, emails. It was like crazy, right? It's like a little computer in your pocket. And now it's like everyone has one. And if you don't have one, it's like, Jesus. I remember when we used to run off the 3310s and play Snake.
Yep.
Those are the days.
Never forget the Snake. 2468. Yeah, Snake was great. I played a lot of that.
Tell me about what you've been doing lately. You said that you put on about 5 or 6 kilos after 2019 with all this fitness stuff. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of strength training with the gym and just a lot of functional bodybuilding. And I've got kyphosis, I've got scoliosis, I've got Sherman's disease, and I didn't do enough as a child and as a teenager growing up and working on that. So for me now, it's about mobility, it's about movement. And speaking to you off air just before, I really am in a lean state at the moment, feeling very, very fit and just want to keep it that way. But I also want to be mobile. My biggest probably driver at the moment is being lean, fit, strong, but also mobility.
I call it army fit, right? Yep. Like you can run 20 Ks, but you can also bench, your body weight, and you can squat your body weight. You need to be that army fit.
That's basically army fitness is what I've got to a T, which I can do at the moment to a T. So I can bench my body weight, I can back squat my body weight, but at the same time, I'm probably not building massive amounts of strength, but I'm definitely very, very happy with where I'm at. I've got some huge, bigger goals, like with my overhead strength, with my back being so stiff in my upper thoracic spine. I've got it so much better, but I talk to my Lawson every day saying, mate, how do we get this better? How do we get this better? And I started a lot later in life compared with most people that got into weight training maybe at 16, 17, 18. But you know what? It's never too late. So I'm very, very grateful that I've got the right people around me. And that's why, like for a Sunday session now, it might not be as much strength, it's more mobility, because without your mobility, you become stiffer, you get more injured.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, it's harder to recover. And you'll probably find that yourself, Sam.
Have you found that since you've started getting stronger and lifting more weights, some of these problems have, minimised and gone away a little bit? Yeah.
Completely, mate.
It's like so true. You have to get moving, don't you?
You have to get moving, but you've got to get through the pain barrier. The first 12 months of the injuries and the concerns I had with my left side of my body. So it's interesting. I was an avid tennis player as a kid growing up, didn't do nowhere near enough research, and I was so dominated on my right glute and my right side because I had a massive forehand. I've got a double-handed backhand, so my whole left side of my body is very, very weak. So I'm spending a lot of my time at the moment doing single arm and single glute bridges to ensure that I'm trying to build my glutes and my shoulders up on my left side because I've got this uneven balance because of my tennis days. But it caused a lot of injuries when you're snatching or you're doing hingy movements. So, but I'm definitely getting so much better compared with when I first began. But it's just all, again, like we spoke about in the start of this podcast, the compounding effect. If it was that easy, everyone would do it. But everyone has to understand it might take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months of consistency before you start seeing the results.
I mean, I 100% agree with that. It takes a lot of time, right? I remember when I first started trying to run long distances, my left knee, I've had a knee recon from it, and it was just buckling out on me past 25, 30 Ks. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? Because my other knee isn't doing it, but I've had a knee recon on that left knee. Now, without any strengthening work on that, I still managed to run a 100K race and a couple 50K races. And after that 100K race, I went to a friend of mine and said, hey, because he's a qualified coach for the ATG system with a knees over toes guy. So I went over his house. He showed me a few things, and it was rapidly getting quicker.
Sure.
And now, like I ran 17 Ks this morning. I'm just coming back from an injury at the moment, but I'll generally be running 25 Ks on a Saturday morning, and I get no knee pain anymore. I ran a 50K race in the middle of summer on the Gold Coast, no knee pain. But it was more about full flexion of movement and getting my knees strong again, which I've never really done that type of training before.
Sure.
And once I started targeting those areas, I honestly feel like now I've got a 115K race booked for the 21st of October.
Sure.
I feel invincible for it. 100% I'm going to break down at 75K because that's what happens in these races, but my knee won't break down, right? It'll be my quads will start to cramp, my calves will start to go. Very, very normal stuff for 100K races or plus 100K races because, you know, the amount of load that you're putting through them body, putting through your knees, right? You think of a 100K race or plus, that's 100,000 steps. I'm weighing 75 kilos, so that's what 100,000 times 75 going through my knees. So of course they're going to, you know, eventually blow out. But like I came out of my 100K race injured badly from it because my knees weren't strong enough. And then I went to the 50K race, no issues at all. So I'm really, really working as hard as I can to strengthen my knees up. But it's taken a process as well. You know, I've been at it now for a year and I'm feeling really, really good, but I still feel there's a lot more to go.
And that's pretty amazing for all those people listening today is that, yeah, what kind of human being at the age of 33 is running 115 Ks? Mate, absolute kudos off to you. That's a huge achievement and
Thanks, mate.
Something that should be very proud of because, yeah, to run even 12 or 20 Ks is huge, let alone 50, 100, 115. So it just shows your mental resilience and that's something you've had from the Army days. And I think that's what I love about you actually going to the Army. It's taught you so much and it's probably taught you lessons for your children because of the resilience of what you've had to put your body through, your mental state through. And it might not have been a 4 or 5 year period, but it just shows you that 4 or 5 year period can obviously have major impact on your life and your generational life for a number of years to come. So it's amazing what your mental capacity can do now. And for anyone listening, it comes down to that. Real estate, life in general is very, very much about mental resilience. And if life was meant to be easy, it'd be too easy. So there is absolutely no question. It's how do you overcome those issues and the problems you have every day that make you a better person.
I think my massive mental resilience came from the Army, but mostly my Afghan tour. Like I learned so much about myself on that tour, but more importantly, what I'm capable of both physically and mentally. You know, how far I can push myself, what I can do, and you know, some of the stuff we did that, you know, it went for days. I look at a 115K race now and think, oh, well, it's going to be 14 hours. I'm going to be in my bed eventually, right? Like I'm not going to not be in my bed in 14 or 15 hours. So to me, mentally, that's not really a challenge. Physically, 100%, you put your body through absolute brutalness and it is very, very tough. But these long races, mentally, they don't really challenge me that much because I know I've been so much further. You know, and like, well, shit, we went through some really, really tough times as well. So you take the good with the bad over in Afghan. But there's a lot of me that was very, very thankful that I had that trip and what I got out of it, if you know what I mean.
Sure. No, absolutely. And I could only imagine what you had to put your body through and what you saw would pay a big toll on your mind. But here we are today and look at the challenges and adversity you've had from that, but look at what the next 12 months looks like. It looks like you've got a pretty exciting 12 months lined up.
I think the biggest thing was I wasn't challenging myself intellectually, and that's where this podcast has come from. I had Tom Jonas ask me why did I start it, and you know, I never really deeply thought about it, and the question sort of caught me off guard a bit. But I think the aspect of challenging myself,
sure,
having these type of conversations with people that, you know, I don't think 15, 16 weeks ago I could have had. Do you know what I mean? Totally. I think I struggled a lot with these type of conversations, but it just shows through practice you can actually get sort of good at them. And in you know, even the first 5, 10, 15 minutes of these podcasts, I'm a bit like, you know, and like it takes me a little while to set in. But once I settle in and I get comfortable, I'm really enjoying them. And I'm really enjoying the people I'm having on as well.
And I think that's the biggest analogy in my life now is that I always want to be better than the day before or the year before. And I'm always looking at how can I get my business more streamlined? How can I provide a better customer experience? How can I become fitter? How can I become stronger? How can I become a better person? So I definitely judge my life now based upon not success, but based upon being a better person and being better at a number of factors and challenging myself every day, because so many people in society, in which I see in my job with clientele I sell for, literally do life day in, day out. They don't change their behaviours. 4 years later, you see them, they're basically doing exactly the same behaviours, and you're thinking they're just wishing their life away. And for me now, like, each their own, but I want to keep growing. I want to keep getting better. I want to become a better version of myself, and that's something that I drive performance, and that's what I love about my business.
I mean,
not just my business, but my whole life.
I mean, you can get stuck in life, can't you? You know, you can get hit with these rows, and you know, one of the main things of getting stuck is bills, I think. Right,
totally
like
agree.
bills and stuff like that, and people can get stuck and they get put in these ruts. Like, I know I've been there, right? You know, years ago I was there. You just get stuck in these ruts where you don't want to get out and you don't want to do stuff. But I think the important thing is making that start. Whether that start be you start getting up at 5 a.m. every day, whether that start be you start running 5K every second day. You know, You just got to start.
But what you got to remember as well, for all those people listening today, like my life and Sam's life might not be for you. I'm not saying you have to be so disciplined and adamant about what you do, but at the end of the day, it might be like you just mentioned, run 5Ks 3 times a week, run 5Ks once a week, right? Like, everyone is different, but run your own race. And yes, the biggest and hardest factor I've had to live with in my life to date, in my 33 years of life, has been, okay, I compare myself to every other top performer, and why aren't I as good at them?
Comparison is the thief of joy, my friend.
And why aren't I as good as that particular estate agent? But at the end of the day, can you do it over a sustained period of time? And there's a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And obviously Harris Real Estate's built its business based upon a book by Jim Collins of Good to Great and Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. And Good to Great talks about relentless disciplines over a 20 to 30 year period. Relentless disciplines over a long period of time. Whereas everyone thinks, yep, you can build a business in 5 minutes, in 5 years. It takes 10 years to build a foundation for a strong business. And as Warren Buffett always said, what's your business like when the tide goes out? Because at the end of the day, anyone can list and sell a house in 2024. But right now, Sam, what is your business going to be like when there is no buyers or there's no listings to come by? You know, that's when the good get great.
Well, it's about winning the decade, not the day, right?
Totally agree with that. And that's why, people around you and mentors like the likes of Jim Collins and the likes of Jay Shetty's I'm a big fan of Jay Shetty because his practicality on life. Matthew Hussey's got huge insights into relationships in 2024. He's got millions and millions of followers around the world, English guy, and speaks very practical from a relationship point of view. So like these people, listen to their podcast, follow them on Instagram, because they have taught me a number of factors that make me a better person, and they can probably do the same for you. The likelihoods of Ed Mylett. Ed Mylett's an absolute jet out of the US. So these people have inspired me in a big way.
Yeah, I've taken a lot of inspiration from people like Joe Rogan and you know, controversially Jordan Peterson, people like that, right?
Sure.
You know, living that different and harder lifestyle. David Goggins as well, very controversial, but you know, a lot of people hate him, but I enjoy it. I enjoy that mentality of just shut up and get it done. Do you know what I mean? Like stop complaining about your life, because and I think one of the biggest things that I agree with on that the most, because I've probably seen the worst, I've seen the absolute desperation of people from living, you know, going to Afghanistan and seeing how they live. And, you know, we're so lucky we get to wake up in places like Australia every day where, where your next meal is coming from. You don't know that if, you know, the water you're drinking might be contaminated and stuff like that. You know, we're living in such a comfort-driven world at the moment, which is heavily influenced by social media. And when you get comfort and social media times together, there's a lot of issues coming out of that. And I think the one thing that if people are struggling in life, and, you know, I actually adopted this method years ago, is to get myself uncomfortable and delete all my social media. And I think things improved for me drastically.
I'm sure they did, because you didn't compare yourself to others.
Yeah, comparison is the thief of joy, my friend.
Absolutely.
What's your opinion on genetics and fitness? You know, I heard you make a comment before about, you know, you probably don't have the greatest genetics, but, you know, you enjoy working hard.
It's a good question. It's because in the last 3 or so months, can call me mad, call me stupid, but I've gone back in and I've said, okay, well, why is Novak Djokovic so gifted? What's his ability? Because I'm an avid tennis fan, as you can probably appreciate, and I am obsessed with obviously a number of people on this planet in regards to their ability to be great at what they do, such as tennis players, such as AFL footballers, and with the Olympics on at the moment, understanding swimming as well. So if you look back at like Novak Djokovic's father, he was a professional skier, right? And to the age of 5, like he was an unbelievable skier, Novak Djokovic as well. If you look at Yannick Sinner.
Really?
Yeah, Yannick Sinner was an unbelievable skier as a kid growing up, and his father was a great skier as well. If you look at Carlos Alcaraz's father, he ran a tennis academy, was a very, very good tennis player, not great tennis player, still great in probably nationwide in Spain, but didn't go on to win the big time. So it just shows you that most people that become professionals, like my business partner Phil Harris, was on the professional tennis circuit there and grew up with Leighton Hewitt. But if you look at his father, a world-class cricketer, right? Really good class cricketer. His brother's a world-class AFL footballer. So there's definitely some genetics that play a massive picture in someone's life. And then you look at the intelligence of someone that might be a medical student in year 1 and they've got straight A's at school. Normally in their uncles, aunties, or grandparents, there's some form of genius behind that. So yeah, look, I'm not complaining because I'm still very grateful for what my family did, but I've definitely got hustle. I've got some form of talent, but I've utilised my discipline in a massive way, Sam. Like you all know that I don't have massive amounts of genetics, but at the same time, I've utilised it in every aspect possible. What about your upbringing? What's your family like? Are they athletes, or where does it go back?
Well, my mum is still very, very healthy and fit.
Sure.
She still goes hiking. And she's been very, very fit her whole life. My dad was a very, very good footballer growing up, but huge drinker after that. I've learned a lot from that. Maybe stuff not to do when you're
same as me,
stuff like that. So the biggest thing for me, what I've learned from that, is to continuously stay moving, because he stopped moving and his body just started to get ruined on him. But yeah, genetics wise, I don't think I was gifted with the best genetics. I think my father was very, very mentally switched on and very strong, and the way he brought up me and my brother was quite similar to that. He was always really, really helpful with us, pushing us with footy. So that mental aspect of him, he was really, really great with that. And my mum as well, she used to tell me to run more on the footy field and stuff like that. So, I wouldn't say they're bad, or I wouldn't say they're 100%, or I wouldn't say they're good. I would say they're very medium. But I think my aspect of the thing that separates me from everything else is my mental ability to push further than everyone else.
And hustle will always beat talent in certain fields. Like, sure, there's great tennis players like a Nick Kyrgios who's a waste of talent. Like, he's got unbelievable talent, but he hasn't got the hustle, versus you got like a Carlos Alcaraz that's doing hustle and talent, and he's already won 4 majors and he's only 21 years of age. So he's probably on track to become the greatest player of all time based upon his age and what the next 15 years looks like if he stays fit and healthy and doesn't get injured. So even the likelihood of Yannick Sinner. So the next 10, 15 years in the tour is going to be very interesting. But looking at other fields as well, like I went to a client's house last week and I spoke to a client at length, and their daughter was an avid swimmer, like a avid swimmer from the age of like 5 until the age of 20. And she gave up swimming at the age of 20 because it all got too difficult, made the Australian team but didn't make the Olympic team, didn't qualify for the Olympics. But the actual ability and the disciplines it took in that 15-year period will stay her for the rest of her life. It's a bit like you in the army, getting up at 5 o'clock in the middle of winter when it's freezing cold and swimming laps, right? These disciplines play such a big part to play. So I think even though, sure, I was an avid tennis player, I was never that good at it, but I played so much of it, and that probably made me more disciplined in my work life and in my gym life today. Because what is your foundation like from young age? And I know for you, Sam, it was football, because you played a lot of first name football at Ross Trevor. You played a lot out at Green Acres. You were very, very heavily involved in football. You were always an avid sportsman, and that went on to give you great disciplines in the army and now what you are doing today.
When greatness happens?
What's that?
It's when talent works hard.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's when you get a real special one.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like, if you look at Buddy Franklin, like sure, like someone that doesn't even want to approach the media. You look at Dusty Martin, like some of the greatest footballers of all time, even your father-in-law, like Johnny Platten, to think that what his career evolved and how he played so many games for Centrals and Hawthorn. But unfortunately before our time, but from my parents' sake, he was definitely one of the GOATs of all time. And absolutely though, the talent and the hustle is what he made such great success in his football career.
It's the perfect ingredients. Hey, we need to start slowly wrapping this up, and I've got a couple of questions for you that I ask all my podcast guests.
Sure.
If you could go back to 18-year-old Thomas Hector and give him one bit of advice about life, what would you tell him?
Definitely enjoy the journey more and stop being so anxious and wanting to be number one so quickly. All I wanted to do was get there so quickly and sell lots and lots of houses. Enjoy the journey and take longer, because all I wanted was, I was too short with people in the early days. I was such a robot in regards to how many appointments I had to book, how many calls I had to make, versus I didn't really get to know people because I was so adamant about numbers. So even if it took me 3 years or 4 years to get there versus 2, I think definitely take longer, but enjoy the journey, because in those earlier days, there was too much anxiety. There was too much anxiety in regards to just wanting to be and comparing myself to others who are 10, 15, 20 years older than me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Was there anxiety in making money as well?
No, the money wasn't a problem. I don't think money was definitely
You just wanted to be number one.
Exactly. I just wanted to be the best real estate agent at the youngest age. And no matter what, it takes sacrifice, it takes disciplines, but does it really matter whether it happens 2 years later, 1 year later? Like, everything's got its toll. So I think for me now, if I look back at the Tom of 18 years of age, it's like I wouldn't change the way I do things, but I definitely, you know what, enjoy the journey a bit longer, versus I was so cut up about just wanting to be the best so quickly, and I wasn't really enjoying it as such.
Yeah.
I was so anxious, and whereas now, real estate I really enjoy. Sure, there's good days, there's bad days, but mate, I love my job. Like, I love the people I get to talk to. I get to choose the clients I want to work with now. And you know what? I can't find any industry that gives you anything with the amount of love for the clientele, and my clients have become my friends, like I mentioned here before. It's just good fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still puzzled at that question of what I would ask myself, or what I would tell myself, sorry. I still don't know. I've asked all my podcast guests this question, but I've never been able to put it on the nail on my head of what I would say to myself. I don't even know if I would say something to myself.
You enjoyed the journey?
Yeah, I've loved the journey, but I wouldn't tell myself what not to do, because I think making mistakes is more important than not making mistakes.
And I've made plenty of mistakes along my way as well.
So I wouldn't say don't do this, don't do that. I wouldn't even tell myself to enjoy the journey. I wish I found out what I'm doing now earlier though.
Yep.
Like maybe I'd tell myself to study Stoicism. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Become a Stoic, because I've really found a lot of pride and happiness in that.
Sure.
Maybe I'll do that.
Okay.
All right. Now, as a previous podcast guest had a question for you, you got to have a question to the next podcast guest. Now, he's in Melbourne. I'm not going to give him away. He's practically built a business off amateur footy and going around and playing footy clubs. And he's built a brand off it, and he's built fitness apps and diet apps and stuff like that. And he's, I think he's about 26, 27, and he has done very, very well for himself. And I can't wait to get him on. So what would be your question to him?
Well, my question to him is, did he ever think that it was ever going to have such a big following and a big company from where he began his journey, from starting it from scratch? So I'd love to understand what his actually ambition was. So for people listening today, Phil Harris, my business partner, give you some practicality on this, is like, the reason I asked that question is because when you start a business, I've got so many people, Sam, that say, oh, I just did a few bits and pieces, and all of a sudden here we are later with 100 staff and a $20 million business. But like Phil, when he first started Harris Real Estate, he had the BHOG, big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And we had a huge goal of wanting to be a business of $50 million in revenue right? Be the biggest independent company at Harris Real Estate across Australia. So my question to the next guest is, did you ever think that your business would be where it is today, or has it just blown out of proportion based upon what's happened throughout the last 5 years? Because it's amazing how businesses change and evolve, but based upon obviously Phil's success, you've got to have really strong conviction. And I mean really strong conviction with regards to people, your management staff, your values to where your business wants to grow. But then you look at other businesses like Sweat, Kayla Etzinas' business. They never, ever, ever thought that Toby and Kayla would have sold out to iFit for such a large profit and large sum. But again, it just evolved very, very quickly. So I'd love to hear his story. I'm going to listen to that in a couple of weeks' time, Sam, because it's a phenomenal story of what he's built in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having on. Really young, entrepreneurial, different type of guy, and he's living outside the normal, which is the type of people that I want to get onto this podcast. And look, mate, if someone is listening to this podcast and I do want them to sell, or they do want you to sell them their house, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can reach me at 0423 767967. Google Harris Real Estate. My details all on there, or realestate.com. But more importantly, today's been more a discussion around how can help you listeners enjoy your life and get more fulfillment from your life, and more importantly, hopefully get time back in your life, because like I mentioned to you before, time is your biggest commodity. And if you want to write this down, like I mentioned just a moment ago, systems equals leverage, leverage equals control. Without a system, you cannot build leverage, and without leverage, you don't get control. So my life now, it's very simple. It's controlled. I've got great people around me, and I've got great systems in my life.
Tom Hector, you did not disappoint, mate.
Thank you very much,
Sammy. You did not disappoint, and thanks for coming on, and I really appreciate it, and I'm really, really lucky to call you a close friend.
Love it, Sammy. Thank you.
Good on you, mate. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And for more information, head over to our Instagram at Two Worlds Collide Podcast. Take care.